Okay, now see what it says right on there? H2O2. That's nothing more than basically the molecules of water. Now, here's what he says. Listen to what he says. And the kids that laugh, they think he's joking because he's just got a little balloon here. Watch.
That sound was too loud for you. Keep your mouth open because then the pressure in your mouth
They're all laughing. yeah. And that is water. All he did was turn the gases back into water. And the release of energy is staggering. Now, the reason I'm so excited was because when I was a kid, my father told me that he ran a car on water and turpentine. Something like that, kerosene. I guess it was water and kerosene. And I always thought, yeah. And then he said he tried running it on water alone, but the engine exploded. I said, how could the engine explode with just water? I thought he was crazy. He said, no, the pistons cracked and all kinds of problems. And I said, no, and I lost track of it for 50 years, 60 years. Now it's coming back to me. Yes, because water is just too explosive. Okay, my friends, another shocker if this is true, and I think it is. We're talking about hydrogen fuel cell cars versus combustion engine cars. Well, we all know what gasoline is and how much it costs. Well, electricity, we all know what that is too. And it is kind of expensive at the moment, but how could we make it almost free? If we could create hydrogen fuel cells that were like literally almost free, we could run everything for almost nothing and never have to pull over to buy gas again. Now listen to what they say about the hydrogen fuel cell.
A fuel cell is composed of two plates separated by an electrolyte membrane.
All right, that's the key, a membrane. What does a membrane do? It's a filter. What does a filter do? It keeps big things out and lets little things through.
One plate is called anode and the other is cathode. Hydrogen is passed through the anode while oxygen is passed through the cathode.
All right, here's the first problem I see here is you have to already have hydrogen gas. So you have to create the hydrogen gas and you have to create oxygen gas as well. And then you have to feed them through into this where they have a membrane which separates out the electron. Now listen.
At the anode, the hydrogen molecules are split into electrons and protons.
You hear that? Electrons and protons. Well, electrons, yes. Protons, that's fine. We'll go with that. But electrons are what I am focusing on. Electrons are the smallest part, and they are the squishy, burny part. And then they have to get back to their proton partners. And that's where we get our electricity. Watch.
By a catalyst. The positive particle of hydrogen can pass through the membrane, but the negative particle cannot pass through it.
All right, so now we've got one that's able to go through and one that can't get through. However, these want to be back to these desperately. So if we put a conduction path to get them back to there, we can do work. Watch, is exactly what they say.
However, atoms need an equalizing charge, and to achieve this, electron must change the path. That time, the electrons are forced through a circuit and generates electric current and heat. The end.
All right, so they need to get back to here. This is precisely what I showed years ago to using laser lights and a filter. And the filter was a Venturi. All right, so now we've got the separated electrons moving through a conduction circuit back to the partners that are on the other side of the membrane.
The product of this reaction is water, H2O. At the cathode, the hydrogen protons, electrons, and oxygen combine to produce water molecules. Due to the lack of moving parts, the cells are highly reliable and its operation is silent. The hydrogen fuel cell is useful in the automobile industry also. Currently, there are several companies around the world working on the development of hydrogen cars. To learn more about the hydrogen fuel cell car, check out our next video. Friends, please share this video globally. Let's grow up. Never stop your learning.
I agree with you, my friend. Okay, they say there's a membrane separating, keeping the small particles from the big particles, but the small ones want to get back to the big ones, so they go around the membrane through the wiring circuit and then they reattach. I can show that exact same thing. And I say we can get electricity using my concept here that I put out long ago, using this powerful laser and putting it through a Venturi. We can separate the particles. We can get these negative particles right here, totally negative, and they will come back to find their black partners which have gone around. So we put them through a pipe just like they did, zip, right up through, and they come back to the other side and find their black partners on this side after they go through our circuitry and all our, because we want a battery packet, and then we want to put it through whatever we want, our device. They use a light bulb. We use cars, airplanes, trains, anything you want, lighting. And you can put this in a little tiny container, and I show this. I just use an old Geiger counter to show what you could do with this. You could make something this powerful that would run a house, basically, in something about this size. I could see no problem with that, because this should be an increase of 200 times the energy. We're not using gases. We're using just what's in the air. Watch this. Okay, CERN and Fermilab and all those people, they have smashed particles together, these big, big protons, and found these tiny little particles, which they call muons, electron, neutrinos, and so forth. And then they found a whole zoo of other particles. But the smallest ones they found is what they call a muon, electron, neutrino. Now, we use light, so we didn't use protons, but we did see the muon, electron, neutrino, as I will show you. Light is a particle. Now, I'm showing it as this little magnetic ball. However, it more closely resembles this, and I will show you this in a second. And as it goes forward, it has a glowy, pushy side, and that's what pushes everybody else out of the way. So the field of this is huge. It's like this. It's gigantic. So everybody out here has to get out of the way. So they start glowing. The more glow here means that we're doing the impacting. These are shovers. This is a pusher. That's a shover. Okay, so what we did with that particle was we accelerated it, I believe, which is right here. And the particle that I showed you is this particle right here, which was, I showed it as one little dot, but it is this particle right here. Okay, now here's how this works. And Fermilab agrees with this. This goes back quite a ways. They say there's one fixed particle, which is this one way up here, the black one, and a glowy small particle, which is the point particle. So there's a fixed and a point. This is our fixed. Right here, the same fixed, and these are the same points. Now the points can get bigger and smaller. They're the energetic particle. And this, again, this is Fermilab. And they say exactly the same thing from Fermilab. So we're right on the same page. Now, I show these as concussing and gaining value as they go forward through the air. All right? And this is just in air. So that's the photon. And we can see this because of the luminosity and the radiance. It's fully understood now with these new CMOS smartphones. And this is not even new. This goes back to 2012 when Samsung S3 came out. We could see these things. And this was done with a Samsung S3. Now, CERN, Fermilab want to see the muon neutrino, which is these black balls, and they want to see the electron shower come from the white ball, and there that is. And they've seen all of these things, but they don't understand how they occurred because they started with too much stuff. We started with one little particle of light, and we could see it smash and divide and accelerate and all those things. So, and we could control the muons and the electron showers, which are these. The muons and the electron showers. And we can create sterile muons, which is what they want. Now, if this gaining of value between the white coming back to the black, which it does right here instantly, if we could put a receiver right here, exactly what I just showed you a minute ago, suck off of that energy before it gets back to the black. We coded it away, send it down for it to get back to the black on the other side. through this, we have all the energy we need. And they claim, and I have no reason to discount this, that this is 200 times more energy, 200 times an increase when you can separate them like this. And I see no reason to dispute that, because I can see just enormous increase in energy potentials. All right, the first one you saw was just a wave coming through. Everybody's got to get out of the way. This is the particle which you have seen. Now it is accelerating, I believe, and it is concussing at the Venturi, and we know for a fact it's separated. We can see this enormous increase in energy. I mean, it's just a gigantic explosion from what back here where we had virtually nothing. And the reverse EMF, electromagnetic force waves, that you can see back here, I hope you can see them, those little waves, that's from the reverse explosion. All right, so that is quite obvious what you just saw. And the particle that we accelerated is this particle, where is it? Right here. And the leading one glows, and it interacts with what's in front of it, you see? And then it glows, and then it flips to the back, and this one comes to the front because it's too much push to shove. And this is what they look like as they're building their energetic, interaction as a light particle. Just sitting around, the electrons, if they are in an ambient temperature, they don't really interact with anybody else. They just sort of stay where they are, and everybody else stays where they are because nobody's pushing, nobody's shoving. As soon as you have a difference in the temperature, you have push and you have shove. Or if you have a chemical energy where you have bonding and you push a particle away, you have push and shove. Or if you have light or impact or concussion, it's pushing and shove. Someone's pushing against something else. That's push to shove. And I'm going to tell you what, the whole universe is push to shove. You want to see why I can say that? Factually, with no question whatsoever. You see all these fields in space? This is space. This isn't in somebody's lab. This is Dylan Carpenter's, Rod Warren's nephew he's in New Zealand, Rod is in Australia. And he sent me these pictures. He said, what do you think? I said, I think I'm going crazy, man. He's looking at the moon, and these are all stars and things, and they all have the exact same architecture that I talk about, which is a dark core and surrounded by light particles. Now, these are pixels. I understand that, so they're not like actual particles, but even pixels have luminosity centers that show these things. Now, here's what really blew my mind. He's taken of the moon. Now, the moon doesn't appear to have a magnetic field. Although I don't know if it does or not. Look at these magnetic field lines. Maybe this is one pole and this is the other pole of the moon. I just don't know at this point. It's just bizarre. And when I saw these things on top of the moon, I said, what the hell is going on? How did these get in front of the moon from the Earth? And look at the colors. The blue means there's some, that's energetic reaction. Blue is a little energetic. It's got a pyramid out here. Look at this stuff. And this is right on top of the moon. Now, how could it be on top of the moon? It's either on top of the moon or it's from here in between here and the moon. And I didn't think there was anything much between here and the moon. Nothing like this. So I started looking around and I found out, yes, the moon has these magnetic anomalies that are on the surface of the moon. And I believe that's what he's picking up. This is all magnetic field lines. Every bit of this is magnetic flux lines. And somehow, and I'm not going to divulge whatever he's doing. If Dylan wants to talk about it, that's fine. It's not for me to talk about it. It's just for me to say what I think about his thing. And I can see this white, and I can see this black. This is the moon. What the hell is going on there? What is going on there? And it looks like it's a dipole on its own. It's a black spot and a white spot. Look at this one down here. I'm telling you, the whole universe is dipoles. I mean, look at them. 100% you can see it. If you can't see that, I cannot help you. Dipole means you got a dark and a white. Now, The moon is a different situation. I don't know. There's no dipole here. Well, maybe it is. I don't know. Maybe it's the blue and the orange is the dipole nature of the moon. It's not bright enough to make a black and a white. I have no clue at this point. My mind is in shreds. Now, before we move forward, I want to tell you one thing for absolute no question certainty. This universe is 100% filled with magnetic particles and fields. That means light coming to us from wherever they say at the edge of the universe is not speeding up, it's slowing down. They say this universe now is going faster than the speed of light, which they say, they base everything on the speed of light being consistent. It's not. The speed of light slows down, speeds up, and all it is light. The frequencies of light are longer waves and shorter waves. As it comes further and further and crashing into it, starts to stretch way out. And that's how we get the redshift. That's all it is. So they don't take into account any of these fields. Nothing. It's like this doesn't exist. Not only are they fields, they're saturated with particles. Light is particles. I just showed you what light is, or I will, and it's nothing more than particles. And they are magnetic. They push and they shove. If I'm light coming through you, I'm going to push you back. You're going to shove, you're going to push through me. I'm going to shove back. That's what it is. Push to shove. The pusher is always the hard guy. All right, so once again, here's what CERN and Fermilab and all of them want to see is the muons, electron showers. And they just refitted the Large Hadron Collider for head-on collisions of protons. Don't need that. The light into a Venturi is nothing more than forcing them to interact with their own fields. It's exactly what a head-on collision is, only we can control it by making sure that they have to enter this region. And at that point, the black particles are so heavy that they just smash the hell out of the white ones and force them through a slit that is too small for the big ones. And here, I think we can do this with hydrogen and oxygen. That was my real point about starting this, because there's no question we separated the white electron showers, absolutely zero question, from the muons. There's the muons. No question whatsoever. We started with light, and that's exactly what CERN and all of them want to see, only they start with too much stuff at the same time. Now, again, we have tiny particles. The white ones are tiny. They're those little white glowy ones I showed you. They can squish down. The black ones can't. The black ones are just too big. Now, the same thing with hydrogen and oxygen. Hydrogen is a very small, it's a 1, but you have to have 2 together because it's a diatomic. Same thing with oxygen. But hydrogen is 2, what they would call protons. Oxygen is 16 times bigger than hydrogen. So this would be 32 for oxygen. Let's say it's 16 and 1. Let's go with that. If we could get this hydrogen and oxygen down here and pulse it with heavy-duty, really hammering lasers, and all it is just air. Hydrogen and oxygen is just air. So if we could figure a way of making a Venturi that was just wide enough that the hydrogen and the pulses were just hard enough that they would just push the hydrogen through, and the black balls would just keep crashing, bang, 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 and the white ones would squirt out, which is the hydrogen. That's exactly what we did here. It's exactly what we did here. Exactly what we did. The black balls smash in. They can't get through the Venturi. The white ones can. The black ones can't, so they have to go around. It has to be very well tuned, and it has to be designed the correct way. And there's probably going to be some other considerations, especially when we're working with molecules instead of light. Light is what I'm showing you back here with the light is the smallest thing there is. This is going to be enormous compared to light. Every hydrogen, just one single hydrogen, is 1,839 electrons. We were working with electrons over here, the muon and the electron neutrino. Together, that's one electron for me. These are going to be gigantic. The oxygens are 16 times bigger than the hydrogen, so 16 times 1,839, that's a lot of particles. We need to try to keep the oxygen intact instead of exploding that as well, because we could break these particles too, the oxygens. Now, what my father did was he was using a carburetor, which is basically the same as this. It's an atomizer. and he literally turned off the fuel, and just let a tiny little bit of oxygen and hydrogen come in. But he had it so compressed that they separated and exploded inside the pistons and actually cracked the pistons because of the explosive value of it. As I showed you, I'm going to show you again one more time, that the explosive value of hydrogen and oxygen when they recombine is just staggering. That's all he has in that is H2 and O2. All right, so one more time. They're using hydrogen gas and oxygen gas to create the separation of powers and letting the extra electrons feed over to the oxygen. We are actually separating by them mechanically. So this is a different process, same result. We're getting free electrons, they're getting free electrons. We're using them to pump our batteries and go through our device, same as they're going to use it. Then they come back to the other side, same as ours does. We're going to tap a little bit off to keep the laser going. It's going to keep accelerating and creating enormous increases in energy, and we're going to use that energy for free, and we'll never have to do another thing. They have to create hydrogen, oxygen, catalysts, membranes, all that stuff. We're using a Venturi, like almost free.